retirement income mistakes to avoid. Near retirees often make several common mistakes when planning for retirement. The issues we're going to address are mostly return issues. In other words, based on what your returns from your investments are, your TSP, IRAs, 401ks, what they receive, the growth. CD Financial, where health meets wealth.
Welcome back to the CD Financial Podcast. CD Financial, where health meets wealth. As always, I am Marcus C., your host. That man across from me is the man with the plan, otherwise known as Chuck D. Chuck, how the heck are you?
Brother. I couldn't be any better. Thank you for backing me up, Marcus, all these years.
Yeah, you know I got your back, man. Always got your back.
You do, too.
How's life?
It's good. It's solid. It's strong.
Excellent.
Why complain, man? Just get up every day and go forward. Keep on moving,
Absolutely.
baby. Keep on moving.
Absolutely. So, listen, Southern Cal, are you dealing with that horrible 72 degrees and sunny weather, or you got clouds? What are you looking at right now?
Yeah, about that. 72 degrees and blue skies. Yep, that's about right. Yeah, nice little gentle breeze keeps it going.
Oh, man. Very good. I got to get out there sooner rather than later. I need some of that in my life.
Coming up.
All right. So what are we discussing today?
3 retirement income mistakes to avoid. Retirement income mistakes to avoid. Near retirees often make several common mistakes when planning for retirement. The issues we're going to address are mostly return issues. Marcus, why don't you read the 3 points that we want to address today? Go ahead.
You got it. Let's go through those. So number 1, failing to diversify investments. Number 2, ignoring inflation. And number 3, not having a withdrawal strategy. So let's start out with point 1, Chuck. Point 1, failing to diversify investments. Relying too heavily on one type of investment can increase risk. Diversification helps protect against market volatility. Enlighten us.
Wow. Okay. Relying too heavily on one type of investment. So when you diversify, you protect against that up and down. Okay, from the market. We've talked about this in past episodes, of course. In order to have an income plan that allows withdrawals during good times and bad times, you've got to separate the accounts. Withdrawing from a falling asset, and then you withdraw, it's like getting on top of a poor man who's drowning and hoping he can keep you afloat. You both will sink together. Get off that poor soul drowning and pull him to shore. It's the same thing when the stock market is losing your money. You got to get off that money. Do not see it as money for income. The money that's invested in the stock market is money for growth. That money is separate. So you need to diversify into more stable investments. Increased risk of loss. If you concentrate investments in a few assets, that could lead to significant losses if those assets perform poorly, badly. And then with market volatility, when you don't have a diversified portfolio, the portfolio may be more vulnerable to these fluctuations in the market. So they can lead to higher volatility and stress on the portfolio. Yeah. And then inflationary risk, which we're going to talk about as well. If you hold too much cash or too much fixed income assets, it can erode your purchasing power over time because of inflation. We'll talk about that real soon here. And then there might be missed opportunities. You have overconcentration in certain sectors of the stock market or certain asset classes that can result in missing out on growth opportunities in other areas. You've heard about a diversified portfolio. That's what that means. Sometimes people will say, well, the S&P 500 did X amount of returns. It did 15%. Why did my portfolio do 15%? Well, sometimes with a diversified portfolio, you're going to have some money in smaller stocks. You might have some in international. And when those things pop, then you'll get returns there too. Typically, retirees aren't looking for these home run hits all the
Yeah.
time. They're looking for steady growth and then steady returns that may possibly outpace inflation from their money that's separated for income. So, Marcus, tell
Go
me,
ahead.
you're up here. Tell me.
I was enthralled. Pardon me. I was enthralled for a second there. So, okay. So then how do we fix this, Chuck? What are we looking at? How do we ensure that we're doing this properly?
How to fix it. Asset allocation. You spread your investments across different asset classes, stocks, alternative investments like fixed indexed annuities, and cash alternatives. Maybe when we're talking about stocks, we could be using a funnel to get individual stocks that we purchase in your portfolio, or you could be using ETFs, occasionally even mutual funds. This helps balance risk and potential returns. And also, there's a geographical diversification. Sometimes the S&P has got so much love that it might be time now to look outside. When there's when you say global fund, it may not exclude the US, but it might also include Canada, Europe, and other markets, Japan, and developing markets, maybe even emerging markets like Brazil and India and China. So sometimes having a geographic approach, investing in the broad market, you can reduce dependency on any single economy. Right now, since that S&P in the US has seen so much returns for so many years, feeling is that maybe international stocks could be overlooked, maybe even smaller stocks instead of the S&P 500 or the Magnificent Seven that you've heard mentioned. It could be that there's opportunities elsewhere.
I feel you. Okay. So, Magnificent Seven, by the way, great movie. Yul Brynner was wonderful in that.
He was
All right.
killer.
Getting back to the stocks, though. So, what if, for instance, I like tech, right? That's my thing. Is it okay to be all in on tech stocks?
I like tech sometimes too. Sometimes it's okay when all the other tech stocks are up, and other times you'll get the stick. You might get a real beating, right? When financial crisis of 2008, with that mortgage-backed securities, all the inflated stocks and tech stocks, they got pounded, right? During COVID, pounded. 2022, they lost more. But if you're way away from retirement or you don't need that money for a decade, maybe you can handle that kind of volatility. Again, staying diversified, staying diversified when you're in retirement, that's key. Okay,
Yeah.
that's key.
Fair enough. But you mentioned, what if retirement's far away? What if I'm young?
That's a different story, right? Altogether. If you like the risk, you can ride the wave up and down over the next decade or two. For TSP investors, there's a mutual fund window. But heading in there, you better know what you're doing. It's why the TSP board only allows 25% of your balance to go into the mutual fund window, for now at least, because they don't want people in retirement. They actually don't want people while working even to ruin their retirement funds. Yeah, because they don't know what they're doing. If you're in retirement, spread it across various sectors like tech, healthcare, finance, consumer goods, or just use a professional for this growth side of your portfolio. The use of index funds, like we talked about, even ETFs, that means exchange traded funds. They trade just like a stock. They don't have to wait for the market to close, so you get in and out quickly. These can provide broad exposure to multiple sectors and regions, helping to achieve that diversification, and typically an ETF at a much lower cost than a mutual fund. We access individual stocks for your portfolios, as we mentioned before, but those are models run by professionals, by money managers, and we leave the stock picking to the experts.
Yeah, honestly, I'm hearing you go through all this, and it all sounds pretty complex. If I'm being honest with you.
And guess what, Marcus? It can be a little complex.
Yeah.
That's why I say get a pro, right? Get professional advice. With a
Yeah.
fiduciary on your side, fiduciary, they must act in your best interest. With a fiduciary on your side, creating and maintaining a well diversified portfolio that's tailored to your income and spending needs and your goals, that could be invaluable.
All right. Second point. Point number 2, ignoring inflation. Ignoring inflation. Over time, inflation can erode purchasing power. It's essential to plan for the rising cost of living, especially now more than ever because inflation has become a beast.
Okay, so you got to plan for inflation because of the rising cost of living, expenses. That's it, right? And you said the word beast, right? Inflation has become a little monster. If if you sit on cash, I call it sitting on your hands, you can dwindle your own money's worth. That's called purchasing power. My dad, he had a couple 4-cylinder engine cars back in the 80s. He had a Chevy Vega. Actually, that was in the 70s. It was a 3-speed, man. And dad,
Chevy Vega, was that like a Citation?
a Chevy Citation. No, it was before the Citation. The Chevy
Oh,
Vega was a 2-door little car.
yeah.
And here's a funny thing: guys used to drop huge V8 engines into the Chevy Vega
That I
platform,
remember.
and they would
Yeah.
rip it up at the track. I remember that I went down in Maryland when we lived in the Philly area, and I saw one of those, and the tires almost met. They were so close together. I'm gonna digress too much though. The Chevy Vega, he had a 4-cylinder, 3-speed handshaker, and when he shifted, it would like grind. It sounded like it was a meat grinder. And then he bought a Pontiac Astor in the 80s. It was a red one. It was the same car as the Chevy Vega. Those engines were so lame. But for the time back in the day, the 4-cylinder engines were not expected to have much power. People didn't fly around in their 80 miles, 85 miles an hour like they do here in Cali or over there in Texas. If we use that,
do some flying.
what's that?
We do some flying on the highways here.
Yeah, they do. And here in Cali, woo, SoCal. If we use that same engine nowadays, there's no way that car is going to sell. The engine is just too weak for our modern times. That's just the way it is. You have to stay up with the times. So does your money. It cannot earn Zippo and then expect to buy mucho. There's just no way that's going to work. Those same dollars got to get to work. It's like a lazy teen who sits around on the couch and never even takes his dish to the sink, let alone clean it and load it in the dishwasher. Your money in the bank is like that. Possibly. If it's not earning real interest, it's time to say, hey, you, get off the couch. Hello? Get to help me, right? Get help in here with my retirement. No lazy teens are allowed in this house. The rising cost of just food and utilities recently has brought this topic to the forefront.
Yeah.
Even our lunches, okay? So before pre-COVID, our lunches were like $10 a person. Now I buy lunches for the whole team here, Monday through Thursday, mostly because Friday, hardly anybody's working on Fridays. But our lunches pre-COVID were like $10. Now on the regular, with tax and tip, they're basically $20. I mean, honestly, if we get a lunch for $15, wow, that's like, wow, what a discount. I know it because I'm buying it. So that's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And now with the all the minimum wage rises over there in California, it's getting more expensive.
Well, yeah, but none of our team earned minimum wage. Do you remember when we were kids, right? A stamp, to mail a stamp. I remember the stamps were just a nickel, 5 cents. I can remember when the post office decided to take stamps up to 10 cents. People freaked out about that. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I remember when especially the one that stands out to me is when it went up to a quarter. A quarter was huge.
Now the post office doesn't even want you to know how much it costs. That's why every stamp is a forever stamp. Because whenever they increased postage costs, it was a big deal. The news talked about it. Everyone would carry on and say it's ridiculous, especially in Pittsburgh, where I'm from, very conservative town. When the cost of anything went up, people would be griping and moaning. Now we don't even know what it costs. How much is a forever stamp? We just line up and pay for it. Marcus, do you know how much a forever stamp is? Do you know how much it is for a stamp, a single stamp?
No, I think the last time I stopped checking, it was around 50 cents, maybe. I don't know.
Okay,
What,
so as I record, it's 68 cents. But guess what?
wow.
In just a few weeks, it's going to 73 cents. And no one talks about it anymore, do they?
No, not like they used to. It doesn't seem to hitch anymore. Okay, so then discussing this sort of inflation, how is this such a big enemy for retirees?
Because right now, your retirement income could be more than enough. You're just fine. But in 15 years, and look, some of you are really taking care of yourselves. You might be out at 60, you might be 75, and you're still doing these, what do they call those, 14ers or something? Taking hikes up mountains, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to have to cut back and not enjoy yourself as much
No.
when you're still really strong and really vibrant? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, slowly year to year, your money could be buying less, and your investments staying too conservative or in cash can mess you up. So, reviewing your investments and purchasing power at least annually, it's a big, big deal for us here at CD Financial. It ought to be a big, big deal for you too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Making sure you have enough, not just now, but down the line. Forward, future thinking, man. That's where it's at, right?
That's where it's at.
Point number 3, not having a withdrawal strategy.
Not having a withdrawal strategy. Without a clear plan for how to withdraw funds from your retirement accounts, retirees, you're risking depleting your savings too quickly.
So you're saying I can't just take out money when I need it or want it?
Look, it's your money, but withdrawing money in unpredictable amounts and frequency can blow the top off the lid. If you take too much too soon, you may not be able to cover monthly expenses and maintain a consistent standard of living in future years.
Yeah. So it reminds me of, we read about these athletes sometimes with the big contracts that they sign, right? They're making a lot of money and they're living it up with the Cristal and the private planes and the Lamborghinis and so forth. But then a couple of years later, they're out of the league. They're no longer playing. And then they're back to square one, essentially, right? They've spent all their money and it's just all gone at this point.
Yeah, that's it, right? You remember Iron Mike Tyson?
Oh, yeah.
Man, he made 300 million. He started his career back in the 80s when money was money. Dude spent too much too fast and pop goes the weasel.
Yeah.
You got to have a plan. Withdrawals without considering taxes are a big concern as well. So we're talking about withdrawals. If you take too much out too soon or unpredictably, your plan may not have the wherewithal to survive it, especially if you're taking money we talked about before out of the stock investments and it goes down in value. Withdrawals without considering taxes are a big concern. They can push retirees into way higher tax brackets, increasing their overall tax burden. It can really mess you up. And there was a family that I was helping, and they wanted to buy a condo in Vegas, and they insisted on taking the money from their TSP. They did not want to withhold taxes, and they did not want a mortgage. Back when interest rates were cheaps, right below 3%.
So what did you tell them?
What I tell them, I asked them no less than 3 times to talk to their accountant. Said it at least 3 times. Please, I want you to talk to your accountant before you do this.
All right. And then what happened?
They withdrew the money, all from their TSP. Next year, guess what they asked me now? If I could talk to their accountant. but it
Yeah.
was too late. And the next year, because they had to withdraw even more money the following year to pay the taxes that they created from the original massive withdrawal, they had to withdraw another big chunk again. It was a vicious tax cycle for like 4 years before you actually leveled out. The original
Mm.
depletion truly altered their income plan.
Mm.
Yeah, if you take improper withdrawals or timing, it can force retirees to sell their investments at a loss during the market downturn, and then it just really messes with your portfolio's value. Again, separation of funds is key, and having a plan is also key. Creating a well thought out withdrawal strategy helps mitigate these risks and ensures financial stability throughout retirement. Look, we're not saying not to have a good time. We're saying to have a plan. So there's money that's there for income and for withdrawals if you need it. Sorting out what your income needs are and then having a designed portfolio with separate investments for income and discretionary spending, like that dream trip to Italy or that car you wanted always, and then those investments for growth. Keep those accounts away from one another, and success may very well be yours.
Fantastic. Then you'll have money for that Chevy Citation you've been dreaming of all those years, right?
How about a Corvette instead, Marcus? How's that sound? Boy, that car is nice when they redesigned that thing. I thought the first time I saw one of those vets, it was during COVID, I thought it was a McLaren. Yeah. I was like, wow.
I thought it was something like that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I texted a friend of mine who's a big car enthusiast. He reads Road and Track. And I said, hey, what are the experts saying about the Chevy Corvette, the new one? He says the best bang for the buck. And he works for a Porsche store too. He sells Porsches. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, then that's what we want to have in mind. That chance to have the bang for your buck, right? Get that dream Corvette if that's what you're looking for, in addition to keeping all your other ducks in a row. All right. So let's just real quick, 3 points, right? We went over failing to diversify investments. We got to have some for growth, some for income, separation of church and state, if you will. Point number 2 is ignoring inflation. It's a beast, man. The beast will run right over you if you can't keep pulling out your money, right? Or pull all your money in the G fund or bank or under your mattress or anywhere else.
Yeah, so you can't keep all your money in the G fund. You can't do that. Yeah. If you try to do that, it's not balanced. It's not a diversified portfolio.
Absolutely. And number 3, not having a withdrawal strategy. Money and investments selected for income and staying the course with discipline. Not getting crazy, right? With massive withdrawals early on. And later you will be successful and have that money for the vet or the trip to Italy. All right, Chuck, you got a health tip for us today?
Yeah, I do. My oldest sister, Lisa, she lives on 72 acres out in Waynesburg, PA. It's the last town of any significant size before you hit the West Virginia border, directly south of Pittsburgh. Her and her husband, I remember they decided to raise a hog, and all from their own table scraps. And so they just fed that hog whatever was from their table when they're cooking, and you're throwing away the discarded lettuce and the carrots and what have you, right? And meat, whatever it was, hog will eat everything. The rest of my siblings laughed at her for doing this until the day that they butchered that bad boy and she started sharing the spoils. That hog, my other sisters, my brother told me never, I got brothers, but one of them lives in Texas. So never had a better bacon been baked than that pork that they got from that hog. Why do you think that was so good, Marcus?
Man, nothing beats raising your own pigs, right?
Nothing beats raising anything that you know what they're eating. I mean, it's not just free range, but this was natural stuff, right? They didn't have to give the hog feed, genetically modified stuff. No, just their table scraps, right? And they had their own garden, and they have game meat. My brother-in-law's brother is constantly hunting, always sharing his catch and whatever he shoots. So they've got good food down there at their table. And then when they give the scraps of that good food to that hog, Man, boy, I never stopped hearing stories about how good that was. I'm telling you what. Yeah, that's my health tip for the day. I guess it's know what your animals are eating. How's that for a health tip? Yeah.
I think that's a great health tip, man.
Yeah.
You eat bacon.
Yeah, because people say don't eat bacon. Marcus, what do you do with the bacon? So we started. I no longer get burns from when I cook bacon because I don't fry it anymore. I put it in the oven, hash browns on the
Yep.
bottom, and I use a cookie sheet and a cookie tray, and I lay the bacon right across that. Sometimes I'll put rosemary on it halfway through when I flip the bacon. But all those bacon drippings from that Trader Joe's Applewood smoked bacon, that's my favorite. All those drippings, what do you do with them?
You use that for cooking, man. That is the best cooking fat.
Man, I bet you when you make beans, that's so good using that. I know my wife's family, they fry eggs in that, but it's clean.
Absolutely.
When you bake that bacon, it's clean. When the drippings fall down, it's real. It's clear. It's see through. You can just pour
It
that
is.
off into a little glass jar. Yeah.
It is. And don't be afraid to use that over veggies and other stuff, man. I remember, it takes me back, my grandmother always had a like a bowl with bacon drippings right on the stove.
Is that
And
right?
every recipe started out with a spoonful of that stuff.
Oh, I bet you Angie's grandma did the same thing down in Oklahoma. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good stuff. Well, good stuff today, man. Are we ready to put a little bow on this episode?
We sure are.
Fantastic. Well, as we always say, you're going to want a little bit of help because we discussed today 3 retirement income mistakes to avoid. If you want help avoiding these things, if you want to be confident with your retirement plan, seek a professional, and that's where CD Financial comes in. If you haven't done so already, there is a link in the description. Click on that link, set up your 15-minute phone call that is complimentary with the CD Financial team, and they will get back with you and help you out. If you don't click on the link, give them a phone call. We have the number. It's 949-359-5100. 949-359-5100. Call anytime. If you're watching this late at night, call now. Leave a message. Set that up. We'll get back to you. We'll make sure we get you right on the calendar. And lastly, remember to subscribe because we have a lot more information coming up in future videos that are going to be just a wealth of knowledge. You're going to want to make sure you have them right at the moment they come out. So click that subscribe button while you're at it. So remember that. We want to avoid those mistakes with retirement, and we also want to eat bacon. Know where your food's coming from. Eat your bacon, man.
Okay.
Good food. Yeah, it's good for you. So know where it's coming from. Know what you're eating, and enjoy the bacon drippings. It's awesome. As always, I am Marcus, your host. Thank you for joining us at CD Financial, the CD Financial podcast, CD Financial, where health meets wealth. Chuck D, thanks for being with us today. Thanks to everybody out there. We look forward to seeing you next time.
CD Financial, where health meets wealth.